All right, first, our nation's children are back in the spotlight. One medical group is standing up to the left's war on our kids, recommending that sex change operations be delayed until they reach the age of 19. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno here with my co-hosts, Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany. And also joining us today, Cheryl Casoni, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, and Todd Pyro, Fox & Friends' first co-host. Now, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons is now advising against gender-affirming surgeries for kids until they reach the age of 19. It's the first major medical group to do so. Here's their argument. Available evidence, they write, suggests that a substantial proportion of children with prepubertal onset gender dysphoria experience resolution or significant reduction of distress by the time they reach adulthood, absent medical or surgical intervention. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that gender-affirming surgery increased significantly, nearly tripling from 2016 to 2019. Breast and chest surgery was the most common class of procedures performed overall. The Trump administration is commending that plastic surgeon group. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. says this: by taking this stand, they are helping protect future generations of American children from irreversible harm. This comes after one Detransitioner is now making headlines for successfully suing the doctors who performed her sex change procedure. She says this, quote, "I was 16 and I was really, really mentally ill. I obviously wasn't mature enough to make the decision to have surgery, and I certainly wasn't mature enough to handle the aftermath." One plastic surgeon who is a member of that group speaking out and also chiming in earlier this morning here on Fox.
These doctors and psychologists told their parents, you can either have a transgender child or a dead child, and that is emotional blackmail, and there's no evidence showing that these procedures actually decrease suicidality. So they were lied to. They were not given informed consent.
So, Kayleigh, what we seem to be seeing, in my opinion, is the beginning of the fissure in the ice that was the complete fiction, the complete cloaking of actual medicine, of actual common sense, and the butchering of our children. So now people are coming around, essentially, in the medical field and in the courts. But what about all those kids who, in the process, were butchered?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you mentioned the medicine and the science, because I guess I'm naive enough to believe when the left told us we follow the science during COVID that that's actually what they meant. But it's not what they meant, because as recently as 4 years ago, I put up on this screen peer-reviewed data that is sacrosanct in the scientific community, peer-reviewed journal articles that show in the vast majority of cases gender dysphoric feelings resolve around the age of puberty. But that science was just discarded because the politics of the moment is what mattered. So the politics of the moment took over, and this is a field, medicine, where the least invasive method is sometimes the most recommended. But that is indeed not what happened. You know, I've spoken about this personally, and I'll do it again as someone who was told when I was young, about 21 years old, you have an 80% chance of breast cancer. It took me 10 years to make the decision to have a mastectomy, and that was facing an 80% chance of cancer. I didn't feel equipped to make that decision until I was 30 years old. And here is a young woman who at 16 years old, was told by a doctor, browbeaten, it was the word used, browbeaten into making the decision not to go with the least invasive method, but the most invasive method. And according to the mom, was told, if you don't allow your daughter to do this, she will commit suicide. It is so wrong. It is so inappropriate. And why not recommend everything short of surgery? Instead, surgery was pushed. It is, in many ways, I would almost say criminal. We know it's not legally criminal, but I am so glad that the civil suit happened, that she is being reimbursed. Nothing will bring back her womanhood. Nothing. It's irreversible. But at least she has some funds going forward, and there are 30 such lawsuits, 30 in this country. This is prevalent, it's widespread, and it's absolutely disgusting.
Todd, my fellow attorney, I want to read for you a little bit from an op-ed and then show a little bit of digging into perhaps the reasons why this machine was allowed to fester. This is Carol Markowitz. It's her op-ed on ending transgender madness. And she said to end it, make the ghouls who pushed these surgeries pay the price. That's what Kayleigh was talking about, all of these civil suits. So now let's pay a moment from Fox and Friends with Dr. Nazarian, who says why, potentially, some physicians are doing this. Let's watch.
In the beginning, I actually thought they were doing the right thing. But when the European data came out and I approached one and I said, what about all this long-term data coming out of Europe? He said, what long-term data coming out of Europe? And at that point, I realized this is ideology-driven. It is money-driven. Hospital systems and physicians that do these surgeries have made a lot of money. And again, this should not be how we treat our patients, and especially not children.
No, I didn't think I could feel more disgusted about this situation until I learned about the profit associated with this.
The profit and the politics, to Kayleigh's point, to that doctor's point, have been driving this for the better part of the last 5 to 10 years. These lawsuits and this study produced by, and this report produced by these plastic surgeons should really give every single doctor out there pause. And I come back to the law, as I often do. What can you do before you turn 18? Well, you can't vote. You can't sign up for the military. You can't sign a contract. So why should you be able to do a major surgery that changes your body for life? And I've never understood that. The fact that these surgeons are coming out and saying, as surgeons, we understand what happens, what you need to do to the human body, and we're saying, let's give a pause until you're 19, I think speaks volumes, and I think that the tide is turning on this. And as a parent, I have no idea if my child is going to be in this position. Right now, we're a little young. But as a parent, I'm thankful that the tide is turning for my girls and for girls and boys throughout the nation.
Yeah. You know, my dad was a physician. I grew up as the daughter of a doctor, and I just think about how all of his life lessons to me and all of the parenting was about patience and having no rush. And, you know, don't sort of foolishly rush into anything that is irreversible. And I think about, I can't imagine in his very loving practice and how many lives he saved. I just can't imagine what physician would encourage a very rash decision that is irreversible in a child. I mean, it's so sickening. Talk to us about the business element that feels so harsh when combined with such a heartbreaking concept.
I applaud the American Society of Plastic Surgeons for coming out and saying this. The Trump administration is applauding them. I agree with all of you that you should be an adult. You should be 18 or older if you're going to make anything, especially physical changes to your body. I agree. I'm a little more in disagreement, though, with Carol Markowitz on the issue of the lawsuits, because one of the biggest problems we're seeing across healthcare is the amount of malpractice insurance that these doctors are having to carry. Mistakes are made, I understand that, but at least, you know, I've always wanted to see more tort reform in the healthcare system in general because of this, whether it's class actions. I can't see something like this going into a class action lawsuit, but you know what? I'm not a lawyer, and I would be surprised if some legal, eagle came along and said, let's sue for everyone that's had, a gender transition surgery. So yes, 18 and over. Yes, I agree with the association. No, I don't think that the message should be go after the doctors. Change the law. Mm-hmm. That's what I would rather see, and that protects the medical profession. There are 11,000 plastic surgeons in this association. You can't tell me that all 11,000 are sitting back going, I really want to change a 15-year-old from a boy to a girl. I don't believe that. So I think that's kind of the part of this that bothers me.
Yeah, and a perfect tee up, because remember, we covered just a little bit ago when Oklahoma passed a law that said, no, you will not change children. And all of a sudden, everyone was saying how transphobic that was. There was a media narrative push to that. Somehow there was some type of hate associated with that rather than love for the children. And you think about all of those physicians that did dissent, that said no thank you, that did publish reports similar to COVID saying, well, here's what I think, and here's what the studies and the scientific evidence have shown me and my wisdom. Ostracized, absolutely ostracized.
I love what you said, Kayleigh, and we're all kind of in the same boat on this. We want to look at the science. We need to know all of it, and it isn't just physical, and it's not just about, the politics of the moment, obviously. That clouds everything. But this idea of wanting to fix little ones who are mental and psychologically struggling is where this started. It has migrated into more of a politics lane now. But, if you look at JAMA Psychiatry I think it was last summer, it was August of 25, suicidal and self-harm behaviors are common among transgender and non-binary people to the tune of 1/3 of them. That is a high population of any group of people. And then if you subset that with really young people, then all of what comes has to come from everybody diagnosing that child. That child isn't making independent decisions about their own mental health. So why would you let them make decisions about their physical health in terms of surgery as a way to get at that mental health issue? We have a lot of challenges around those issues with mental health in our society. We know that. And we can't let the kids down by picking things that seem like a politically, flexing moment to try to fix what's broken. We haven't even figured out what's broken. We can tell you that XX and XY are our chromosomes, and no matter how much surgery you do, you guys, I'm a broken record on this, you can't change your DNA. But we have to start to be honest now about the mental challenges along with this route of non-binary and transgender when they're young.
Definitely.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.